So Dele is from metaMe. It's a company I've been working with for several years. Really interesting company focused on own your own data and really the whole idea of how to empower individuals. And I'd love to hear what you're up to, Dele, and then see a demo.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll just share my screen, dive kind of straight into it. So basically, I mean, metaMe, we position metaMe essentially as a bit of an operating system. We call it a clean data operating system, which is essentially by clean data, we mean data that you as an individual, that's self-sovereign, that you own and you control. And in terms of the OS, there's basically three core elements. One is like our core data protocol for data management. And we do that by creating these small data containers we call MPODs, and for minimum proprietary data stores. And these are basically how we manage data sharing. And then we have applications that basically use that. So the first thing is identity management. So in our sort of operating system, we have one of our core functions is essentially identity management, where you have different entities. So you can have people, organizations, or things, and things can be objects or devices. And essentially, you can basically control and see what information is shared with which entity through this. And this is essentially like a smart contract that can be switched on and off and rescinded at any time. So all of these access controls are basically controlled through smart contracts. We're based on the Hyperledger Fabric blockchain framework. But essentially, it's important for us that there's a permissioned aspect to the blockchain because of privacy controls, which we'll come to. But essentially, I think the other core thing is then we have a wallet framework. And basically, our principle is that we have three types of assets: currencies, items. So those could be digital collectibles like CryptoKitties, for example, or our comic series. And you basically exchange these using public-private key framework as per any kind of crypto asset in that regards. But then the same for data, where we have data MPODs that can be exchanged in this way. So essentially, as I say, that's the kind of basic operating model. And then we build applications on top of that. So we've been working hard on a comic series that's basically a crypto comic series that we've been crowdfunding at the moment. And that's going to, I mean, we launched a couple of pilot episodes of it, but that will be launching for Christmas through where we're launching a wallet for it. So like a crypto media wallet, where you have these basic assets that you can share or own or control, like any other sort of assets. But the main sort of gist of what we've been focusing on recently has been our COVID application. And that's the main thing I wanted to show you today.
Please.
So to get started, I'll just play this short video and then I'll walk you through some detail on it.
The pandemic has undeniably changed the world and crippled our ability to be together. While we have learned to do new things remotely, many interactions are still best person to person and face to face. We are realizing that to come back together safely, we need monitoring systems we can trust, so we can know who's sick and who's at risk of being sick right now in real time. But it's not enough to simply. Employees need support pre, during, and post-infection, and they need to know that both their health and privacy are being protected. It's becoming clear that not all COVID solutions are created equally. Hi, I'm Dele Atanda, CEO of metaMe, and I'm here to introduce COV I.D, a complete coronavirus monitoring system designed to protect your workforce and build trust. COV I.D is the first privacy-led and science-backed complete COVID monitoring system to get your workplace open safely and keep it that way. It uses world-leading technology to help you identify people likely to be infected early and to take actions based on the latest research and best data available to control the spread of the virus. Most importantly, COV I.D secures sensitive personal data with an advanced privacy platform that maximizes employee protection while minimizing enterprise liability. With COV I.D, employees scan their oxygen saturation, respiration, and heart rates daily simply by looking into a phone's camera. This can help determine if they have COVID-19 even before they show symptoms. It has a medical-grade symptoms checker and lets them record test results verifiably. It contact traces accurately in real time, letting staff know if they have been near anyone infected, while keeping their identities safe and confidential. COV I.D is a complete monitoring, verification, and contact tracing tool integrated in one single app. It is built on world-leading privacy standards and gives an unforgeable COVID status credential daily with recommendations on how to stay safe, tailored to each individual and their particular health circumstances. COV I.D allows you to build trust across the enterprise. As a manager, it gives you the confidence that you are protecting your staff's physical and emotional health, as well as your enterprise's financial and emotional well-being. As an employee, it gives you confidence that the company cares about both you and your family, even when you're ill, and that your personal information will be kept safe, private, and confidential. If you'd like to learn how COV I.D can help you bring your workforce back together safely, do please get in touch.
So that kind of gives a sort of bigger summary overview on how our app works. And you can notice, I mean, I think James sort of made the point that we don't actually talk about blockchain once in that video, in that presentation of it, but it's really all there lurking in the background. So I can just very quickly touch on the things that are done here that are very blockchain specific. So for example, when you sign up to the app, the first thing you do is you create a self-sovereign ID. It feels like a normal sign-up process, but we're creating a Hyperledger Indy-based ID. We then collect information from people in terms of symptoms. We then start this scanning process. This is one of the key things of this app, that we're able to do this scan where we can measure people's vitals like oxygen saturation, respiration rate, just using a cell phone. But all of this data is basically written to a private data vault, and these transactions are recorded through the blockchain. The data is obviously stored off-chain to be compliant with GDPR, CCPA, and the like. But essentially, what you do here is effectively you can see this, the camera is following my face and scanning me here to basically derive my key vitals. And you'll see in a moment my oxygen saturation. There you see my oxygen saturation, respiration, and the heart rate are all recorded from that. This data itself is then recorded as specific private aspects in my personal vault. And then on the contact tracing side as well, we then use our anonymity factor and identity management framework. This is why a self-sovereign ID is key, because we can mask the user's location and identity, and we use differential privacy and the like to manage this. Then we have these specific data sets. So these are these MPODs that are basically non-fungible assets, and these are basically made available. So this one is made available to an employer through an enterprise dashboard, but through smart contracts. And so the rules of who can access this is how can be accessed are all controlled by the smart contract framework. So I mean, you know, a lot of people in the more medical space get excited about the scanning capability and scanning technologies. But I think the key thing here is that essentially we're able to, from a COVID perspective, combine precision data and that gives us a really accurate way to respond to the spread of the pandemic, for example, but still keep people's data private on one hand. And we're able to then generate these credentials that are intelligent because they're personalized and individualized on one hand, but they're immutable, they're unforgeable on the other. So they're extremely reliable, and we can use blockchain technology to attest the information, the veracity of the information that we're receiving but use the same technology to effectively protect that information and prevent it from being exposed to third parties, whereby we can share information on a really sort of minimized need to know basis. And we found that in discussions with enterprises, this is really key, because obviously there's we believe certainly there's a privacy pandemic rising in parallel with the COVID pandemic. And so it's not enough just to protect people from the health pandemic, we have to also protect them from the privacy pandemic. So the last thing I'm going to show here is in this enterprise case specifically, we have this dashboard where what's really key here is, first of all, only cleared personnel can access the dashboard in itself, and it shows the percentage of an enterprise's employees who have downloaded the app, those who are clear, those who are infected, those who are at risk. But the critical thing that I want to drive your attention towards is at the bottom here, where we have these different employees. So you can see the green ones are infected, are clear, the yellow ones are at risk, and the red ones are infected. Now, the key thing is that you'll see now, as I go to, this is the record for one individual, and this individual, you can see they've taken a test and the results of that test. And here's another individual who's taken a test, who hasn't taken a test rather, so we don't have any of that information. But the important thing is that these clear and at-risk employees only share this information anonymously. And it's only when an employee is infected that there is what we call a semi-identifiable link, which means that that person can be linked back to a natural person. And this is all basically controlled through smart contract and immutable law, which basically gives us that maximum degree of granularity, precision, reliability, but also protection and privacy as well.
So Dele, if I have a company and I would like to offer this as a into my enterprise to make people feel safer and get back to normal, how would I contact you?
You can reach me, Dele at metame.com. You can reach us at metame.com, or you can send an email to info@metame.com as well. Any of those will get through to us.
Fantastic, Dele. Thank you so much, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me, James.